Good afternoon, good morning. Today we are on the shores of Loch Cluanie, and I'm taking a bike ride. I was here about a year ago, and since then I've learned a little bit more about this loch, and I thought I would share some of what I've discovered. So now we're looking towards Kyle of Loch Alsh, and there's the main road, which is the A87. The bridge you see just beyond that waterfall, that is what was the A87 before this loch was raised by building a dam at the other end, at the east end of it. So on the other side now, that's the main road, the A87, which will take you to Fort William and Inverness. And this road up here is the old A87. And I plan today to cycle as far as I can to the point where it goes into another loch, and which was also raised in the 50s or 60s. The level, I think it was in the 1960s, the level was raised when the dam was created for a hydroelectric scheme. An interesting thing I'd like to point out here, and this is the case in so much of Scotland. You look around, there are not many trees around, apart from plantations, like that one over there. But there were so many more trees in the past. There you can see, down near my shadow, the roots of an old tree. And down near the water, where the peat has been eroded, there are loads of tree roots. So most of Scotland was, in the past, forested. And so I'm going to get on my bike now and continue this further on. So you can see a little bit more of Loch Cluanie from along here, and this is the 17th of October 2025, and I'm, as well as using the GoPro, I'm also testing out my microphone with a wind blocking cover on it that I haven't really put to the test yet, so interested to hear later whether it's actually working, because it's a little bit windy here. Where there are trees, there are nice autumn colours, and this single track road up until the 1960s was the main road if you were travelling from Fort William to Kyle of Loch Alsh. That's Rowantree. And I'd suspect, I mean, this first part is still actually access to an estate where those trees are over there. But when we get further on, I can't imagine that there has been any resurfacing or repair work carried out since the 1960s, which is more than 50 years ago. 60 years ago. Before I was born, and I'm not a spring chicken. An interesting factoid, I have now got to the point in life, I was born in 1975, and in my lifetime the global population has doubled. We're now over 8 billion, and we were just a ticky over 4 billion when I was born. I think it was 1974 that it passed 4 billion human souls on this planet. That and the ramifications of it are quite profound, I think, and very often overlooked, because people tend not to think in terms of deep time. Not that half a century is deep time, but when you're busy getting on with your day-to-day chores and earning a living and that sort of thing, you don't always have that much time to think things through, and that's what I do like to do when I can, is think things through to their logical conclusion. And the global human population is yeah, an interesting subject, and it's something I thought a lot about in the past. And in terms of the demands made on the natural world, the ecosystem upon which our existence depends, we humans have done a lot of damage and are continuing to do so. So, but that I sort of digress, because I was here today to speak about this old main road, the A87, and I plan to go as far as I can to the point where it just disappears into Loch Loyne. I also made a video which, if you look through my back catalogue, where I approached from the other side of the loch. I'm kind of hoping that the level in the loch will be low enough today so you can see the bridge and the island in the middle. The bridge is where this road used to cross over the river, but when the dam was built at the east end of Loch Loyne, the water level rose, and most of the road, apart from where it crossed this little island, was submerged. But I believe that in drier stretches and when the water level's low, you can see more of what used to be the main road. Another interesting thing is that the way that these lochs, there are three of them. This is Loch Cluanie. Loch Loyne is where we're heading towards, and there's another one. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but they're all connected with underwater tunnels, many miles long, which take the water to the hydroelectric generating plant. As far as I understand, the place where the electricity is generated is at Dundregan Dam, which is quite a few miles further down in that direction. And I also believe that these tunnels connect Loch Cluanie here and Loch Loyne, which we will see later, to this Dundregan Dam, which is a continuation. It's connected to the River Morriston, and it's Glen Morriston. So from here you can see how low the water level is on Loch Cluanie. There's the estate house with a lot of trees around it. All this area, no trees, no trees, no trees, and then there are more trees over there. And that's an interesting part of a forest restoration project. I think it's been put there by Trees for Life, and is part of an effort to restore the Caledonian pine forest, which would have covered pretty much all of this area. If you look a little bit further along, you can see there are birch trees and willows along the side of the loch, which are a remnant of the natural forest. There's little patches following the road along there as well, on the other side. So Scotland hasn't been completely depleted of trees, but massively and significantly. And this is the result, the end result, or the ongoing end result of centuries, millennia probably, of chopping the trees down for firewood and construction materials, and also eliminating natural predators like wolves and bears. And that allows grazing animals like sheep and deer, mainly deer, but sheep also, but sheep have been introduced by people. Deer were here already. And large numbers of grazing animals stop the forest from naturally regenerating. If there are very few small trees around, if there's an area where there are a large number of trees already, then there can be an ecological balance. But most of Scotland is, I would say, out of balance. This part of the road, yeah, I think further back, that had been resurfaced within the last 60 years, but this bit probably not. So nature is slowly eroding this road away, and I'm glad I'm on a mountain bike today rather than a road bike for this bit, slightly smoother. Maybe you can hear, I don't know if the microphone's picking it up, but there are deer down there. This patch of forest, it's no longer secure from the deer, so the deer could be in there. There's a gate back there, and it's knocked over. But I think most of these trees are well enough established that they will survive grazing from the deer. The only thing is that if there are a lot of deer in there won't be much regeneration. But you can also, if you see the edge of where the fence is, the heather has grown much more. You can also see that here, where the vegetation grows more compared with the area here, which is not fenced off. So we're a little bit further up, still following the old A87, and you can see to the end of Loch Loyne there. I don't know if there's enough definition in the picture to actually make out the dam at the end of it, but the water level's quite low. It's not particularly warm today, and we've got little patches of sunshine, but otherwise overcast. But it's a good day to be out for a bike ride. There's so much evidence where the peat has been eroded away of the old tree stumps and tree roots, which goes to show in this amazingly treeless landscape there was once forest, even at higher altitudes like this. So the ecological balance brought about by human beings is in a state of imbalance. So now we're starting to head downhill, and yeah, I think this is about as far as I came the last time before I turned around and headed back, but this time we're going to crack on, and I'm keen to see Loch Loyne from the other side. So yeah, this really is a treeless landscape, but somebody has built a fence here on the left, and I can see a pine tree in there, and that's the kind of thing I was doing at my house, where I was until less than 2 years ago. We had some land, and I put up fences similar to that and planted trees. Fence obviously protects it from grazing animals. So it's kind of heartwarming for me to see when other people have done the same thing. Obviously that's on a very small scale, and further back it was on a much larger scale. So, okay, so we're coming down the hill now. There is actually a footpath heading up there. In fact, it bifurcates. The last time I was here, I was bumped into a fellow who had walked across the ridge, and he came down that way. Just a half a mile back or so, I bumped into a fellow who was out cycling with his dog. He was on an e-bike, and he had been down to the loch here, and he was hoping to actually get across the loch because apparently the water level is quite low, but it's not low enough to be able to cross. I'm not surprised, having seen it from the other side, but still worth doing nonetheless. He's now heading around back to his van, and he's going to go to Tom Doon and then approach the loch from the other side, all before it gets dark. There we go. Oh, the water is low down there. Look at that. That's interesting. And here's another little bit that somebody has fenced off. There are areas which have been fenced off, and they look like Trees for Life projects, which is fascinating to see because there's no roads up there. So presumably the only access is by quad bike. I don't even know if there's any tracks, because that forestry over there, that commercial forestry, has the continuation of this road going through it. But up here, I don't know. I'll need to check the map later. So we're a little bit further down, and where the river, I don't know if it's River Loyne, but where that joins Loch Loyne, you can see how much lower the water level is by the discoloured area, which would have once been dry land, and then it was flooded when the dam was built, and now the water level's low, so a lot of that's uncovered again. But as far as I understand, the water level is quite low most summers. I'm not quite sure. I guess they generate a certain amount of electricity by draining the water through the tunnels to the hydroelectric generating station, and that dictates the water level. But I'm not completely up to speed on these things. But it's fascinating to think that a few decades ago, this was the main road if you were travelling between Kyle of Lochalsh and Fort William, or more locally between Cluanie and Tom Down. Because I guess relatively few people travel along this road now. The odd cyclist and the odd walker. And I guess the occasional person on a four-wheel drive or a quad, shepherd or gamekeeper. But it's no longer a public road. But you think back, and there've been many people and families travelling in cars and looking out the window and seeing that down there as a river before the water level. Obviously when you create a dam, you flood dry land, and then when the water level's down again, that's what it looks like. While I was cycling down the hill here, I was just sort of thinking to myself, there's no signs of habitation, no houses along here. It's not a road that is connected anymore. It's not a public road. And then I noticed there's an old ruined house down there. So at one time, somebody would have lived there, when a lot of that grey area would have been dry land with a river running through the middle of it. But that was obviously flooded. there's what looks like another fence, an excluding fence, keeping the deer and the grazing animals out of that area by the looks of it. But there's also birch trees growing up on the steeper ground, so a little bit of natural forest and a little bit of conservation work. And then further up the glen, there are two more patches that have been fenced off with trees in them. I'm fascinated to find out more about that. That may also be a Trees for Life project, I don't know. Anyway, we're getting closer to Loch Loyne, and it's the road is quite rough in places. Ah, I know where we are. Okay, I can see. Oh wow, the water is low, really low. I can now see the track that I came down the last time when I approached this from the other side. And the water at that time was much higher. So it looks, what is an island with the trees on it, it looks as if you could actually cycle to that from the other side. But I'm guessing, from what the fellow that I spoke with a short while back, I'm guessing that's not possible. Oh, now you can see the wind farm over there. Now, why is that? There is wind today, but none of them are turning. Does that mean that the national grid doesn't require the generating capacity of that particular wind farm? Or is there some other technical fault? And they're all stopped. Interesting. Britain no longer has any coal-fired power stations. I remember going to Kirkensey, coal-fired power station, back in the 90s, early 90s it would have been, on a school trip. And that was fascinating. It was absolutely huge inside, or so it seemed. But that's since been decommissioned, and so has Long Gannet, near Alloa. So I'm kind of interested in technology and power generation. But the thing about it is, and this is all part of net zero, which our government and administration seems to be ideologically tied in with, and the closing of conventional power stations, coal-fired, and heavy industry means that, yes, Britain has much lower carbon emissions than many other countries, but this seems crazy, partly because the cost of electricity is really high. I think we are the most expensive country in the world at the moment for the cost of electricity. But also the heavy industry, steel production in particular, and oil from the North Sea, that's been scaled back massively, and that means that Britain has to import. And the importing of steel in particular from far off lands doesn't really, when you think about it, it's not environmentally friendly at all, because if you produce something big and heavy thousands of miles away and then transport it here, that means that you're basically just pushing the problem further away, and you're actually increasing the overall amount of carbon being put into the atmosphere in terms of shipping. So, kind of crazy. Anyway, yeah, that's the water level is so much lower than the last time. All of that was underwater. That was a proper island. So Or maybe what the guy was describing was the bridge has been destroyed. Because I'm sure that until fairly recently, the bridge was still there. Huh. So, if the bridge was still there, then you could cycle all the way to Tom Down from here. But he got here and turned back. Wow, look at all the tree stumps down there. Look at that. Crikey. This would have been a proper forest. And, you know, this is the usual place where the loch water would come up to post building of the dam. He also told me, that fellow, that he was hearing a lot of deer, and he was seeing a lot of deer down here. Maybe you can hear them roaring in the distance. Fascinating. So, let's see how close we can get. Even here, so many trees. So many trees. In fact, some of these, surely this must have been, yeah, that must have been washed here at some point. Yeah. And so just along here, we will, yeah, the last time I was here, the water level must, well, the last time I was on the other side, the water level must have been roughly where I am now. Now, this is rough. Huh. So, in the winter time, other times, this is rough. This is very stony. I'm going to get off and push. This would all be underwater. So, crikey, so close. I have seen photos of this bridge in the not so distant past. Look how the road's broken up. In the not so distant past, where the bridge was still a bridge. And so, that being the case, you could cycle the old road or walk the old road right across. But now, this is like a moonscape here. The power of water and erosion sucks all the soil away. But still, you know, all these decades later, tree stumps, lots of them. Even like, especially across there, look at that. I didn't think that the water level would be this low. And yeah, I'll need to try to find those photos from not that long ago where this was still a bridge, a badly damaged bridge and an eroded bridge. Hang on, let me dump the bike here for a moment and have a closer look. Yeah, so that is a swimmable distance, even for me as a very poor swimmer. And if we look across there, you can see the continuation of the road, which is where I came down to last year. I hope the microphone can pick up the sound of the deer. I can't see any, but apparently there were some quite close to here an hour or so ago. So, Loch Loyne, and this bit which becomes an island when the water level's higher, and that would mean that I would currently be underwater. So nature has eroded this bridge. Whoops. Right, so this is as far as we're going to get today, and time now to head back up to Cluanie. You get a slightly better view from up here, and you can see the old road on the other side coming down towards where it disappeared into the water. I wish I could go there now, because then I would be able to cycle all the way across to the island. And that's what the fellow that I bumped into before, that's what he's doing. He's approaching it from the other side today, and he's going to go right across to this fallen bridge here, although you can't see it from this angle. So this just gives you an idea of how much land was flooded, and soon I will cycle back to Cluanie this way. So I don't have a huge amount of battery left, but I just wanted to show you, we're down by the edge of the loch, and here you can see the remnants of what was probably pine forest, and you have on the other side there a plantation of conifers, and further in the distance there you can see the autumn colours of a mixture of native trees and what I assume is a conservation project where an area has been fenced off to stop the grazing animals. So human activity and flooding causes this, and overgrazing causes all of this, and yeah, it's just an interesting thing to see, I think, and it feels very, very solitary here. No other people around. Occasionally I'm hearing the deer roaring, but I will say thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.